So, in between filming, I ended up peeling, and right now I'm cubing the mangoes. Now, the mangoes have kind of a core in the middle, so you can't cut all the way through it. So you have to kind of chunk it along the outside of it. The skin of the mango isn't really edible. You can eat it, but it's not very nice on the palate. So I recommend peeling it and kind of roughly chunking it and throwing mango bits everywhere.
Keep going.
Yeah. So just kind of chunk away as you go. And be very careful. As you're gripping the mango, it begins to get slippery, so be very careful. I've almost cut myself several times trying to do this recipe. So if you want, you can kind of angle it and do some slices. Now make sure you leave very medium-sized chunks. Don't do very small ones like this. That's why I actually have 2 mangoes instead of 1 this time, so that way I have more mango as opposed to cutting the mango up so small that you hardly get anything out of it. You want it to be about equal with the size of the chicken pieces that you have. So you see how this piece is similar to some of the other ones that are in the pan. Now while you're cooking the chicken, when it starts to get white, kind of like it is here, you want to start throwing the mango pieces in there with it, so that way they cook down into not really a sauce or anything, but more of their, I don't know how to describe it, they're softer as opposed to kind of hard like they are right now. So you want to be putting that in with the chicken. And they don't have to be perfect cuts because you're chunking it away at the mango. Now once you get down to the core area, there's still some juice within that. So once I get to that point, I'll be kind of squeezing the mango into the pan so that way it has more of a sauce to it. Let me show you what I mean in a second here. Yep, that's the skin right there. Okay, so we're about down to the core right now, and as you can see, it's a big part of the mango. So what you kind of want to do is you want to do a twisting kind of motion. Oops, and try not to get it everywhere. I think I'm getting more all over my hands as opposed to on the chicken. But now, normally with the mangoes, these are actually pretty new as opposed to being more mushy. In the traditional recipe that I got from my friend, he actually wanted the mangoes to be almost, I don't want to say rotten, but they're at almost to that point. Kind of like for bananas, you want them to be almost brown for the banana bread. It's kind of the same idea with the mangoes. You want it to be not almost gone, but to the point where they're really soft. Now, personally, I prefer them to be a little bit more in the earlier stages as opposed to, near death, I guess you should say. So I'm just cutting up this one. Excuse me. Now, I suggest that you put the mangoes in when the chicken's starting to whiten, as opposed to when you first put the chicken in the pan. So that way, the chicken juices aren't getting into the mango itself, but they're kind of cooking with each other, I guess you could say. It's back to the juicing thing I was saying earlier. For this recipe, if you want to do the mangoes with more of a, like I kind of compared it with the bananas earlier, it's easier to do the juicing thing if they're a little bit more rotten, I guess you could say. But I think mangoes are juicy enough, they don't need to be any more juicy. So, okay, because the mango and the mango chicken comes first in the recipe's name, I like to use a lot of mango. Now, I'll be cutting up a little bit more mango in a little bit, but let's start with the sriracha. This is a very spicy sauce, so I recommend if you have acid reflux like one of my roommates does, I suggest that you don't use a lot. So I recommend, especially with a pan this size, doing about possibly that, maybe a little bit more, like that much. If you have something that, you know, causes you not to be able to eat a lot of spicy foods. So I recommend something like that, and maybe a little bit of paprika. A little bit, just that much. That should be enough for people that can't handle a lot of spicy foods like my boyfriend and I can. However, because I'll be making this for the two of us tonight, I'll be using a lot more sriracha. So probably that much. No more, no less. Okay. And then we'll be putting crushed red pepper in there. It's really good. Now, as you notice, I hardly ever do any measuring. I kind of go, oh, that looks good. My mom cooks like that. It's rubbed off on me. So why don't we give this a quick stir. Now, one thing about my cooking, I'm all about aesthetics. I love to see how food looks. I'm also a lot about texture, so that's why I love this recipe so much. It isn't too mushy, it has its own firmness to it, but also I love how it looks. You get a lot of color in it. You have the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and then you have the light color of the chicken complementing that. And once we add the stir fry in there, it'll add more color to it. So this is starting to look pretty good. I'm going to cook down the mangoes a little bit more. And I'll cut up a little bit more. I guess those mangoes are about set. So let's give this another stir. And probably about at this point you want to start cooking your rice. Get the water boiling. Let's see how the chicken's coming along. The chicken's still a little pink in the center. You want to make sure you're constantly stirring it, make sure it's evenly coated. Otherwise you get pockets of sriracha or paprika and other spicy goodness. Let it simmer for a little bit. And wash my hands. Especially when you're working with meat such as chicken, you want to be constantly washing your hands, especially if you know you're going to be working with vegetables. Even if the chicken's cooked, I still like to, wash my hands frequently as it's cooking. I don't want salmonella. So, if I could get a shot over here. If you see in the bottom of the pan, it's starting to create a juice in the bottom. That's perfect. That means the mangoes are cooking down, and the sriracha is like complementing that. God, my eyes are watering already.
Why do you think it was coffee?
Okay.
Excuse me in the background, folks. I'm this is your neighborhood-friendly cameraman speaking.
AKA my boyfriend.
Oh, this smells so good.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm putting about a bowl's worth of vegetables in. And let's see how this is coming. Now this recipe doesn't take very long. I think the most time it takes is the prep. Because the mangoes are so hard to deal with, they're hard to peel, they're hard to cut into chunks sometimes. So it takes more time with the prep as opposed to the cooking, as you can tell. And also waiting for the water to boil for the rice. So it's a pretty basic recipe. I've only made this probably 5 or 6 times in the 2 years that I've had it. It's pretty user-friendly, I guess you could say. So why don't we get these in with the chicken? Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. Okay, why don't I do another bowl and a half? Oh. Oh, sauce.
We don't need that. We have our own sauce. Nice little glaze that's going to the bottom of the pan.
Okay. Let's see if I can do this without spilling any over the side. I normally have problems with that.
Sorry.
We're having some audience participation here.
Makes everything better.
Okay. Oh, we're so close. Most of the times, if I drop stuff off the side, I prefer not to put it back in the pan like some people do.
Hey.
I wasn't talking about you. I don't like putting it back in the pan. Even though I know any germs will possibly cook off, I prefer not to do that. Looks like our water's thinking about boiling, which is good because this is almost done. Now, normally, you want to start your water beforehand. Normally, when you start cooking the chicken, So that way you know it'll be ready when your chicken's almost ready. Now, when I first came across this recipe, they normally served it with just stir fry, just stir fry vegetables. Because I like a full meal, I prefer to have rice with it as well. So that way it kind of counteracts the hot spicy that we'll be tasting. And also, like I said before, the aesthetic look of it as well. Sorry, my cameraman was gesturing to me and I didn't know what he was doing. So. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to put a lid on that so it'll simmer for a little bit. If I can find a lid. The lid's a little bigger than the pan, but that's okay.
And we'll come back to you with part 3.